And I told her.
Good evening. This is the May. This isn't the special. Next one's a special.
This is a regular meeting.
This is a regular meeting, 5 of the Conservation Commission. We have a very limited agenda, but we will start off with the roll call. So Michelle.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
Ray Rafferty, Vice Chair.
Larry Dunn, chair.
Ann Schmidt, member.
Tom Olson, member.
Dave Prescott, staff.
And Kristen is
Is not, yeah.
attending, and Giselle may show up.
She's supposed to be here.
We are not going to do the normal thing of reviewing minutes meeting. We'll do that at our next Monday's meeting. And
Yes.
so there's only 2 items on the agenda, and I do see a number of attendees. So Michelle, would you like to kick this off?
Oh, sure. All right, so this presentation is the student projects from the Connecticut College Goodwin Nearing Center for the Environment. So we had 6 projects that the students worked on throughout the semester, and tonight is their presentations. We have 2 students on each project, and I'd like to turn it over to Jen Pagic, since she's the faculty coordinator for all of this.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I'm sorry, I can't, for some reason, I'm having issues with my video camera, so you'll just have to look at my floating head and imagine me. I'm just so grateful to all the entire commission and all the members that and folks in your organization and within the town that have helped support the students and their projects. We're very excited. We have the student groups ready to go and present. And so I just wanted to say a special thank you to Michelle for always being such a tireless advocate and working very hard to make this happen every semester. And we just really enjoy working with you. I told the students to give 8 to 10-minute presentations. There's 6 groups, so hopefully we won't keep you much past 6 o'clock, but certainly there's time for questions. And with that, if you want to promote the other laptop that's here to panelists, all the slides are on that one.
Can you tell me which laptop it is or which name?
Dual?
Abdul Latif? Yeah, it's probably Abdul Latif there.
Well, there, but yeah.
Yeah, that's him. All right. Thank you so much.
Do we need to promote the other students too so that they can talk? Because everybody that's presenting needs to talk, right?
They're gonna come in on the same laptop. All the slides
okay.
are on one laptop. So you just have
Okay.
to promote him and then, yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right. And I will turn off my audio so we don't have a ricochet effect. Thank you.
First up.
Here we go.
Okay, so Sasha and Philip.
Okay. Do they need to be able to see us? I can hear you. Yeah, you can put your camera. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
There you go. Perfect.
There we go. Now we see the faces.
Keep sitting down. Okay, you are. Perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Philip Swami, and I'm an environmental studies major. And this is my partner.
I'm Sasha. I'm a bio and environmental studies major.
Today, we're going to talk about the use of trees and rain gardens to mitigate flooding. So, a little overview. We started looking at the Poconoke Bridge and the Groton area. We researched historical floods and how trees and rain gardens can be used to help mitigate some of the flooding. The map shows some important areas that we considered and looked at in Groton, but we also looked at the Poconoke Bridge. And we're really doing this to spread information to stakeholders. In this case, that's property owners, business owners, really anyone who has connections to any kind of infrastructure that's on the land that's being affected by the flooding. Yeah. This map we found online is coastal storm preparedness. It essentially highlights areas on the coast that are considered flood evacuation zones. Um, and you can see sort of on the left side would be Groton, and on the right side is Mystic. And these areas are very, very prone to flooding. And it turns out that most people, around 70, over 70% of residents, don't even know that their property lies in the flood evacuation zone. So they don't necessarily know how at risk they are to damage from flooding. And we actually included this storm preparedness um, photo on our poster when we went to the Groton Fair, so that people from all over could see and sort of get a tell of maybe where their property is, how affected it is. Um, yes, continuing. So our initial project was actually to do Mystic, but we decided that we wanted to switch to Poconog Bridge and Groton, mostly because they don't have as much community outreach, and they're not necessarily. They're very different from Mystic, and we also wanted to focus on an area that has less income or areas that have less income. Um, then we had a project. We had the Earth Day event at the library, Groton Library, where we displayed a lot of our findings to the community, which was actually one of the main goals. And it was really important because those are the people who need to know the information, or who we want to learn some of this information on how to deal with flooding and whether they are affected by flooding. And we had people come up to our poster board, take photos, and really appreciated. Some people said that they were going to look more into their property and do more things to prevent flooding on their property. And then the last directional thing is the presentation we're doing right now. Um, so the map on the right shows the whole United States and how at risk different parts are to flooding. The darker, the more at risk it is. And as you can see, Connecticut and most of the tri-state area is very, very at risk. And part of this reason does come back to climate change, because the warmer waters have, evaporation occurs more frequently. And this not only causes more frequent storms and more frequent flooding, but also it increases the intensity. So not only are floods happening more often, but they're more severe. And this is seen in a lot of the recent events. So we have some weather events. Winter storm Heather. It turns out that flooding can also happen in the winter, and sometimes it can be worse because like the flood water freezes, and there's also snow. This could be a real danger to roads. The hurricane of 1938 is really important because of how damaging it was. Not only did it just completely tear railroads off of the tracks, but it also broke down roads and like uprooted trees, and it did permanent damage that can be not permanent damage, but damage that can be seen today to the actual coastline of Connecticut itself. And Groton and the Poconog Bridge are affected areas. Also, another storm that did a lot of damage was Hurricane Sandy.
So now that we've talked a lot about kind of the negative impacts of flooding, we're kind of talking about ways that we can help mitigate the effects of flooding that are happening in Groton. One way that we found to do that is by planting trees. So trees can help mitigate flooding through various different ways. One way is the tree canopies help kind of intercept the rain that's falling, and so it spreads out the impact over a long period of time instead of all the rain accumulating in one area at once. Trees also help slow down the flow of stormwater and reducing erosions by absorbing storm water through their roots themselves. And this also increases the water storage capacity of soil. So this allows runoff to decrease. And this also decreases the amount of standing water that's in people's yards. So some trees that we found that can help mitigate flooding, like the bald cypress, river birch, black tulip, weeping willow, white cedar, and red maple. And we want to use native trees because we don't want to bring in any non-native trees that can help disrupt the environment. And some of these trees are really good because like the bald cypress, weeping willow, the white cedar, and the black tulip, they all thrive in really moist areas along river banks, and then they're also, again, very flood tolerant. And then the red maple is also a really good option for Groton citizens to plant because they can absorb up to 5 gallons of water a day. So that can be really helpful in an area that maybe sees a lot of flooding. The water can be absorbed through the roots of the red maple. So we also want another option for people who don't have a lot of space or who don't have a lot of money to be able to plant trees. And one way is rain gardens, as they utilize native shrubs and plants that can help absorb large amount of water in people's yards. They help capture rainwater and filter it off hard surfaces such as like driveways, off sidewalks, off roads, and it again decreases the amount of standing water. And again, this is beneficial because it's low tech, it's less expensive, and in smaller spaces, people are able to utilize this. And then again, we want to use native plants because we don't want to introduce non-native species into the ecosystems in Groton. So some plants that can be utilized are like the black chokeberry and the summer sweet, which are really tolerant of salt spray. So these can be used like in areas closer to the ocean. And then there's also the bee balm, common blue violet, and swamp rose mallow, and the swamp rose mallow, who are very good at thriving in moist environments. So again, this is areas that kind of are seeing periodic flooding. So the ground is really wet there, and those plants are able to absorb the water in those areas and make it so that your yard is not covered in water, your driveway is not covered in water, it's soaking up those puddles. And then some shrubs can also be used in rain gardens, and some of those, like the inkberry, the switchgrass, and the spicegrass, thrive along streams and ponds. And then the American cranbush, the red twig dogwood, and the blue elderberry are flood tolerant and again help to absorb the water. So again, these are just ways that locals in Groton who are struggling with floods from different storm events, from hurricanes, are able to kind of find an environmental friendly way to soak up the water that's affecting their area. So now that I've talked a little bit about the information that we've learned from doing this project, I want to talk a little bit about like the deliverables that we'll have. So one thing that we're doing is we're creating a pamphlet that hopefully you guys can all use during community outreaches, events, or help to educate Groton locals about the impacts of flooding, such as the flood maps, as Philip said, how not a lot of people really know about if they're in area of flooding or how impacted they are. We also will have a final write-up report describing what we did. And then we also have this area in Groton, which is 1 Fort Hill Road, which you can see, believe this is the Groton, this is one of the rivers that goes through Groton. And it has really high flood risk. I think it's 100% flood risk zone on the FEMA map. And this could be a potential pilot location for GCC to use to show the Groton community how they can plant trees or create a rain garden. And we also will give different plants and trees that you guys can use in these areas, such as the weeping willow would be a really good tree to utilize here as it grows really well along stream beds. And then some future steps for this project for if this project is able to be implemented, is to partner with different organizations, such as the Yale School of the Environment, which is currently working in New Haven to help plant trees. And then there's also the Tree City USA through the Arbor Day Foundation, which again is also helping to fund planting of trees to better communities. So the Arbor Day Foundation also has done work in Bridgeport, Connecticut, if any of you are familiar with it. They help to plant trees, and they're working to make, and in Connecticut here, we can become a community. We have won awards through the Arbor Day Foundation, but we haven't become a community through the Arbor Day Foundation, which could be really beneficial to this area. Some other future steps are holding information sessions for the Groton community, where Earth Day was really, really beneficial. And I think more events such as those that we can kind of help locals learn about flooding and how they can help mitigate the effects is really important. And teaching seminars using maybe the pilot location in Groton that we suggested in the last slide to show how you can plant trees, how they can help survive, and then how you can plant rain gardens for them to be beneficial so that so that people can do this in their own homes. And then that's kind of the sources we use to find all our information. And yeah, thank you. That's our presentation. If you have any
Great.
questions.
That was great. Does anybody have any questions?
Jen has her hand.
Oh, yeah, Jen.
I'm just retrying to connect, sorry.
Jen, did you have a question with your hand up or what? I don't. Any of us have questions?
I think
I
we can just.
have a question.
Okay.
I do too.
What,
Are you guys ready to take questions?
Is it?
Can they hear us?
but I don't know, because nothing's happening.
I don't think they get, because they're on the next.
they left.
They left.
I think maybe Jen told them they already took their 10 minutes and so maybe write down your question and we'll, at the end, we'll go back and ask
We can-
questions.
we can
to
ask.
people in the group.
Hey, Jen, is any chance the students can come back? So we have a couple questions here.
The next group is coming.
Hey, Jen, can you hear us?
Questions? That's they just said right there.
Oh. They're there.
They come back. All right, they did hear. Good.
Didn't see any questions.
Where are they in? Are they in Concord?
And I'll just ask if there was any questions.
Were there any questions regarding our project?
Yes. Okay, Larry, you can go first.
All right, earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that 70% of the residents don't know they live in a
Stop sharing
flood
screen.
evacuation zone. Is that something you got from Earth Day, or is there some other source for that statistic?
We're not able to hear you guys right now if any of you are saying anything.
Okay.
Maybe saving questions till the end would work best if that's okay with you guys, to figure out a way that we can all hear each other.
That's weird.
The speaker. I mean, I'll send
Yeah.
a message to Jen.
Because we basically, it's definitely hearing us, but I can check it again. Hold on.
Maybe
Can they hear you now? Or can you hear
I
them now?
think
Hello? Hello?
we can hear.
Talking?
I think
Yep.
so.
We're good.
Maybe if we stop sharing the screen, it would make it.
That
so
shouldn't
we
make
can
any difference.
Where is
It's
the?
Can you hear us though?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you.
That's quite
Yeah.
Hold on. Where's, oh God, I hate when they move everything around here.
that's the
Their
first.
chat, they could put the questions in.
Where are the captions? Show captions. No.
Oh, show.
Yeah, I don't know why we can't hear you, but we're just gonna do the other presentations and then we can stop sharing at the end and maybe we can hear you better then and do the questions then.
Okay.
That's fine.
It's his speaker setting.
Yeah, I think so too.
I told Jen he needs to check his speaker.
I hate when the Zoom keeps changing around what they do.
Presentation number 2.
Yes.
Let's go back.
I'm just gonna call her.
And how you can you see the screen that we're sharing? Give us a thumbs up if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how.
Check your phone, Jen.
Here we go.
You put it on the whiteboard.
Yeah, where the heck is the chat?
Does it?
They can see it.
Did they send us the request or did we send them the request? Like,
Mm.
We promoted them. We promoted them.
Can
So
you
they're
guys
fine.
see it all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay. All right.
Okay, so
Okay. Hi, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but my name is Madeline and this is Phoebe, and we are presenting on, for the past semester, we've been working on a nature play space with Go Groton.
it has to be a no speaker, but he doesn't have a speaker set correctly.
Oh no.
Okay.
We can't seem to click through the slides.
Okay, so we can see it. I guess that was-
Are they changing for you?
No.
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 So.
No. No? Okay.
They're not on.
Hold on. Oh, perfect.
I think that's the shared slide, so
Okay, so we see the screen, but we don't, they need to turn it into PowerPoint mode. Right now, it's just the.
Edit.
Yeah.
Edit
Just
mode.
his slideshow or edit
Yeah, we
mode.
need to begin with the slideshow though.
I don't think that's it. Do I think it's the actual slideshow that you have to start in the.
over here.
Oh, we have to do it on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Presenter, yeah. Okay.
Once you get through all
I know that's not right either.
That's not what we're trying to do.
I think
You're
No,
almost
I
there.
think I'll wait till questions at all the presentations and then.
They
there's
they
no-
designated one student to be in
Switch
charge.
to my computer, because I could hear you earlier on my computer. But now we're,
Just click it.
Hang on, since we.
okay, bye.
All right, so.
Okay.
We got a
we're gonna
black
go through the
square.
Presentations, and then if we can't get
Let's go
this.
from the
then
beginning.
we'll put her computer on. She's got,
Yeah.
she can hear on her computer, so we'll do the questions through her computer at the end.
Screen sharing.
Take a note of your questions. Yeah.
Then you just go do. Oh no, that was, I'm
No.
sorry, other way.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
Okay, so Go Groton is next.
Okay.
Okay.
Go Groton plays space.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can you see our faces?
I can see your face. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we have been working with Go Groton to help produce a nature play space. So Go Groton is partnered with the national organization Nature Everywhere, whose goal is to help guide local communities to connect elementary schools with outdoors. So our initial direction was to plan a physical place for a school of Groton's choosing. And we just wanted to create a way for students to have positive interactions with nature through their school. When thinking about this project, and thinking back to our own time as children in elementary school, we noticed that nature takes a bit more patience to appreciate and get involved with than other activities. And so we wanted to find a way that the program and the play space could really be guided by kids' own curiosity rather than being something that was like forced upon them. And then other things we kept in mind, a supplemental program to go along with the physical planned out nature space. And then also initially cost was really on our minds, and we were thinking about the best way to minimize it and still produce something that could be enjoyed. So this is a screenshot of our initial timeline that we made back in February. And everything that I've highlighted is things that we actually got done, and everything that's not highlighted is stuff we didn't get done. And it's kind of discouraging to look back on it, but at the same time, I think it is really valuable in showing what we set out to do versus what actually got done. And it shows that we learned a lot in the process, and it was not as linear or as simple as we thought it was going to be. So just to read off a bit of what we did get done, we were able to narrow down on the school that we wanted to focus on. We made a lot of good contacts with our stakeholders. We learned about pre-existing programs through the school. And then we were able to, in the end, produce a form that will go out to stakeholders and give us more context about the school that we've decided on. Our project took a big turn at the end of spring break when we met with Megan Granato, the Sustainability and Resilience Coordinator for the town of Groton. Up until that point, we had been looking at all of the schools in Groton and kind of trying to decide which would be the best for a nature play space. But then after meeting with her, we were told that we should focus on 2 schools, Charles Barnum and Mystic River Elementary. So from there, I'll let you take it, but we contextualize the schools. Yeah, so because we now had schools that we could look at, we had a lot of routes to go basically for how we wanted to either keep with our original plan or change it up slightly. We ended up re-evaluating our stakeholders. So people who would be most sort of in contact with what we were trying to create, or like what our goal was by the end of the project. So the primary stakeholders included students, teachers, parents, and either anyone visiting the school or people who are directly interacting with the physical play space itself. And then our secondary stakeholders would have been the Groton Conservation Committee, including our contacts, and Go Groton Town Council, the town of Groton itself, and then people who viewed our poster at the Earth Day Fair. So everyone who wasn't directly involved with it, but still was impacted by it. We were then also able to visit Charles Barnum School, which really gave us a lot of insight to what we were working with. So these are some photos of our visit to Charles Barnum. The first photo is taken kind of on the north side of the school, and it's the place that we got most excited about because we think it would be a good place for a nature play space in the future. It was pretty sunny, as you can see, which would be great for planting, and then it was not too dry and not too muddy, and we went in muddy season, so that was great to see. Some of our initial ideas were native plants, maybe a worm box. We were thinking about these big benches that I'd seen when I went to Montreal, and we thought those would be a good thing to implement. And so we got excited about this place. We walked around the other side of the school, and that's where we took the second photo. And that was really important for us to see because we realized that there were already gardens and programs, it looked like, through the school. And we realized that a lot of the ideas that we had going into the project were actually already implemented. So I'll let you take the next slide, but that was really valuable to us. Yeah, so as we were walking around, as Phoebe said, we were able to see sort of programs that were already set in place by the school that we didn't know about before, as we are both outsiders kind of looking in on the situation. And what we saw was the gardens, obviously, in the last picture, and then that's the photo on the left is a view from it from the other side. So like areas to sit. There were garden beds, so like rosemary and mint was growing in there. So like plants that kids could interact with that like smelled nice, or like you could eat some of it as well. And then on the windows, it was really interesting seeing, it's hard to tell in that photo, but there are little beans growing in those cotton balls in the little blue envelopes. And that was a really key aspect that we witnessed, was that there were a lot of programs that were already in place by specifically Charles Barnum that we didn't know before. And visiting the school really helped put a lot of these programs and a lot of these things that we were parts that we were missing into context. And then learning more about Charles Barnum and Mystic River schools, we were able to meet with Ben Moon, who was the STEM coordinator of all of the Groton magnet schools. He specifically gave us a lot of information about Charles Barnum and Mystic River, and that was really insightful. We learned that both Charles Barnum and Mystic River were picked specifically because of the magnet programs that they focused around. Charles Barnum being geared towards like discovery, and Mystic River being geared towards play and inquiry. And those really highlighted and sort of outdoor view of education and interaction. We learned that they had a lot of programs already in place for outdoor education and interaction surrounding day-to-day school life. For example, Charles Barnum is located right next to Gungiwamp, which has a lot of trails that they were already going into, and like and as well as the most key aspect was that there were, both schools were near these nature preserves, so they already were interacting with the environments in ways that we didn't know about. Again, specifically like as outsiders looking into these programs, and also not knowing. We were discussing in the beginning about budget and everything like that. We were sort of naive in the belief that it could have been potentially a lower budget situation. So we were thinking under $1,000, gearing our focus towards like what could be reused or what could be different aspects that could be taken secondhand. And then Ben mentioned something really important, that these materials had to be non-toxic, and that he then raised our sort of price to like, what would it look like at $50,000? What would it look like at $80,000? And we originally had not planned for such a large amount of money.
So after that meeting with Ben, and after visiting the school, I think we had a much better idea about where the project would need to go to be successful. But we were also realized that a lot of our past work was not really relevant anymore. Just knowing that a lot of the ideas we already had were implemented at the school. Another thing that Ben mentioned was that it would be great if we came up with a play space that was more geared towards younger children, so kindergarten and first grade. And a lot of the ideas I think we had would be better suited for older children. And so mostly our process was just contextualizing a nature play space for the school, specifically in Groton. And while we kind of ended up at a standstill, I think a lot of the conversations we had were really valuable. And I think they will be really valuable for the people who come in after us and pick up this project where we left off. A few things we learned, just that the project planning process is not predictable. And it's not as linear as we thought. We made out this plan in February and we got through maybe a third of it. And I think it's just really valuable to learn. Personally, I realized that you need to be a little bit more aggressive with this. I kind of wish we'd put out context earlier. I think we were maybe a little bit too complacent with it all, but those were really valuable things for us to learn. And maybe we'll even continue this project in the future. And I think we have a better idea of where to go. We identified a physical place for the nature play space, which will be helpful for whoever comes in after us. And then one thing we realized is that our primary stakeholders were not our primary contacts, and we wanted to change that. So we made a Google survey last week, sent it to Ben Moon. This is just a snapshot of what it is. It's just 2 simple questions that we think will help engage parents and students and teachers at the school, and get their feedback about what they think would be best in the school that they know better than us. Yeah, that's about it. We were able to present at the Groton Earth Day event, and so that was a great thing for us. But yeah, this is about where we are, and I think it would be beneficial for someone to come in after us and hopefully use what we collected.
Yeah, we wanted to say thank you to everyone that has helped us, including all of our contacts and everyone that we were working with throughout the project. We, although we didn't get through as much as what we wanted to, we did learn a lot of really valuable information and skills. There were a lot of times where we had to pivot because of new information that we learned, but it was a setback. However, we were able to learn a lot from it and be flexible and carry on with what we had learned and continued to move forward. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys all for being our contacts, and we're so grateful for this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bridget Silva. And I'm Grace Webb. And today we're going to be talking about our project, which was Trailwork software testing. So, as you all know, the Groton Conservation Commission works in partnership with the Groton Parks and Rec Department on trail-related projects. And Parks and Rec is responsible for maintaining the trails throughout the town. And part of that has to do with trail maintenance. And we were informed sort of early on in the semester that this partnership, the the issue sort of is that this method of communication between the GCC volunteers and the employees at Parks and Rec is inconsistent. So together, the GCC and Parks and Rec have made it a goal to identify a software program that could be used to sort of streamline this volunteer reporting process. And so we were tasked with evaluating 2 software programs to see if they would be accessible and helpful to volunteers and cost effective.
So we started by downloading some apps to our mobile devices and using them as if we were volunteers. And then we looked at them from an administrative perspective. And so we started by looking at Relive and Far Out. Both apps had great components for mapping, commenting, and photo sharing options. However, they were more targeted as a social media platform opposed to a volunteer maintenance log. And GCC recommended that we looked at Jotform and Trailforks. But we also just wanted to look at some other apps as well, just to test all of our possible options. And Jotform was quite user-friendly. We liked the interface of it, but it didn't have all the components necessary for the project. In regards to mapping, there wasn't a way to visually see where maintenance was needed or write direct feedback to specific trails and locations. And in the project, we felt that it would be beneficial to have a visual mapping component for the volunteers. And at first, we ran into a lot of issues with the Trailforks app version. The app did have the visual mapping that we were looking for, but didn't have all the features that we really wanted for this project. The app required an annual paid premium subscription. It was around $80 a year per person, making it inaccessible to a lot of people. And the app interface wasn't very navigable, and was hard to use. We were having some issues with it, and I'd say we're both pretty experienced like mobile device users, so we were having a hard time with that. And we also looked at CalTopo, which is also another online mapping app, that kind of had a little similar interface to Trailforks, but even Trailforks, the app version was pretty hard for us to use. But then we switched over to looking at the web version, and we were able to access all the premium features with no cost and all the components that we were looking for.
So as Bridget just mentioned, we found that the Trailforks app was not accessible to us, but the website version really checked all of the boxes that the Parks and Rec had asked us to evaluate. Specifically, you can see on the right here, I have 2 screenshots of the website, and we have up on the top the page for trail conditions and status, and the bottom for pictures. So you're able to upload photos, report trail conditions, leave public comments, and there is basically how it works is that you have free access to your home area, which is about 60 kilometers or 38 miles. So it encapsulates all of the town. And so while we found that it's not as convenient as downloading an app from the App Store on your phone, the part of our deliverables is a volunteer guide, and that guide will have a QR code that will lead volunteers directly to the Trailforks website, where they can easily make an account and save the web page onto their home screen. So it looks like an app, but it just brings them directly to the online version. And we've found that the online version is easy to navigate and will provide Parks and Rec staff live updates rather than having a more outdated volunteer form that isn't easily accessible and requires more work from staff members. And I kind of think of it, it's similar almost to like a Facebook page where you would have a public forum, but it has many more trail specific features like the topographic map.
Yeah, and then these are some of our deliverables that Grace just mentioned. We are going to send a final report, explaining our findings and, just going over in more depth about what we did. And then we do want to have a volunteer manual for consistent volunteers so they can become very familiar with the app and how it's being used. And then at the sites itself, we were thinking it would be beneficial to have the one-page instruction flyer with this QR code. So if you do have your phone out and you're interested, this is the QR code to the Trailforks website.
And the one-page instruction flyer would definitely be like more on-site, quick look at the QR code, go to the website, and this volunteer manual would be more in depth and also would provide like tricks for people who maybe don't have a mobile device and would want to use the website on their computer and could do it when they get home. And so it would be definitely like a longer sort of manual, as the flyer would be more on site and specific to that.
This project was really insightful. It allowed both of us to explore our interests in community service, specifically towards the environment and volunteering. We were both really excited when we saw there was one more geared towards trail maintenance, as we both spend a lot of time outside and spend a lot of time hiking. And together we learned how to effectively communicate with one another and with our project contacts by having frequent meetings and staying up to date with each other and our collaborators. Through looking at various apps, we were able to understand the components that volunteers need while doing trail maintenance and how to implement important technology and support trail work and volunteering. And we learned that it's important to stay up to date by using accessible technology that's so prevalent in our lives uh, and apps just to better the environment, and using technology as a really powerful tool for us. It's such an easy way that everyone can contribute to the betterment of local communities and parks that surround us. At the expo, it was exciting to share our findings with the public and encourage other people to engage with trail maintenance. And we also had our app or the QR code present at the expo, so it was exciting for people to engage with that. And we're both very grateful to have been part of this project and to have worked with GCC.
So as for advice, just general and for potentially future Goodwin students, our first sort of thing that we learned was to not let setbacks stall progress. We were a bit discouraged when we kept downloading these apps and trying, and we couldn't get them to work. And technology can be very frustrating when it doesn't work for you. So we found that, once we were able to sort of take a step back and think about how we could make these softwares work for us, we sort of went back to the beginning, looked through our materials again, and then sort of had this idea to try something new with what we already had, and that was looking at the web version. So there's a way to sort of take a setback and twist it and make it into a positive forward, which is something that we definitely learned throughout this process. And also, it's very okay and necessary to ask for help. Meeting with Michelle was very helpful, and it sparked a lot of new ideas for us. And sometimes it's just as easy as sending a quick email and getting advice on something that is challenging. But we definitely used our resources and found that asking for help was the most important thing throughout this process.
For the future, if Goodwineering and GCC decides to hand this project down to the next class of Goodwineering students who would be taking on the service leadership component of the class, we would encourage them to collaborate with volunteers in the field to understand how the app is useful for people who are experienced with technology and people who aren't, just to go through and smooth over any setbacks or issues that are found while people are actually on trails and at the parks. With this, we think it would be beneficial to have training sessions for the consistent and committed volunteers who are really dedicated towards trail maintenance, present either in Cott Family Park or other parks and trails around Groton. And that kind of leads into our next, I guess, idea or piece of advice for the next group of people who would do this. And just wondering if this would be possible to implement into other trails or parks in Groton, just to keep the maintenance going and, just keep bettering our environment and in the spaces that we are so lucky to use.
So lastly, we just want to say a big thank you to our supporters throughout this process. Jen with Goodwineering, Michelle with GCC, Tabitha with Groton Parks and Rec, and our fellow classmates in the class of 27 cohort of Goodwineering. So thank you very much.
No, they can't hear us, but they can see us clapping.
All right. Hi, I'm Baxter Prescott. I'm a botany major, concentration in sustainable agriculture here.
Well, my name is Abdul Latif. We both study the same major, the same concentration, botany major, as well as the sustainable agriculture concentration, and sophomores here at Connecticut College. Nice to meet you. Well, Baxter and I decided to focus on a project regarding community gardening. And mostly we want to talk a bit more about like what exactly is community gardening, what are the various types that exist, and which one would be best ideal for our project and the ideas that we have. So when we look at like the history of the United States and some of the Western countries, we realize just how important community gardening has been for people as well as communities all over the world during times of like hard times, especially during the war times, the depression times, and like both wars. And afterwards, what happened and how people were able to help themselves get through things during those times. And as you can see, it served as both like a food source, a health. It helped with a psychological relief, like people be able to work on something specific and be focusing their energy on growing something, some food. And that helps them like cope with some trauma or something like that. So it's had so many different benefits to it. And so we want to try to see how we can implement that in Groton and then see how that would also help some people here in terms of like food security and such. So Baxter will go for.
So why did we choose community gardening in the end? So first of all, yeah, last year's Groton 2035 project was on community supported agriculture, which is where the community buys CSA shares, or people who want fresh produce buy CSA shares before the produce is sold, so that small farms can be supported. One problem with this is that it has a lack of food security. It's a very good principle, and it should definitely be followed to support small farms and small businesses and that sustainable agriculture goal. But there's a lack of community gardens in Groton, and focusing on food sovereignty, which is basically the ability of an individual to control their own food sources, allowing them to grow culturally relevant food, nutritious food, whatever they exactly need, depending on their own specific scenario, whether it be financial, lack of connection from their home country, or whatever it might be. So there's a bunch of other benefits for community agriculture beyond this, but that's the core reason why we chose it. Community agriculture obviously is increased access to those who can't garden at home, whether it be because they're renting and they're not allowed to, or because they don't have the space. It allows access to fresh, nutritious produce, and it works as a community builder as well. So it strengthens bonds between community members, not just people in the garden, but people who are walking by as well, and connection to the local environment and town while producing that food and having that sovereignty. So goals and what changed. So initially, we didn't really know that we wanted to do community gardening, obviously. So we wanted to decide, basically, because of our major interests and the previous year's project, whether Groton should focus on home or community gardening, with the focus being on food sovereignty. In addition to possibly wanting to map out sites if we were to go with the community gardening route, and get really a good framework for Groton to control the future of their food system. But with time constraints, some of us getting sick for a while, actually both of us getting sick for a while, we shifted our focus to only community gardening. And that's also partially because of our experiences outside of this project that led up to this project, which is additionally easy to focus on for the town in comparison to home gardening. It's hard to implement home gardening at a broad level. It's easier for the town to focus on community gardening because the town really controls the community, right? And then we decided from mapping out sites to, we kind of transformed that into having some preliminary research and analyzing the cost benefits of having a community garden in Groton specifically, rather than sites. So we happened to have a very similar experience over spring break that kind of led to the formation of this idea as well. We worked on creating this outdoor classroom that you can kind of see on that upper left picture with program partners Alerta Verde and Cochabamba, Bolivia, and they established community and school gardens throughout the city. So we had obviously a lot of takeaways from this. It was very naturally connected to our project idea already, but we realized that spaces like this can be created very cheaply, and there's plenty of recycling opportunities available. So some of the things Alerta Verde does is they have old tires in the shape of a flower painted over, and that can be a raised garden bed in and of itself, as long as you fill it with dirt. Community gardens have their greatest effect on youth and should definitely employ youth programs if they do go into effect. So obviously Groton already has elementary school gardens that are utilized throughout the school year. But after talking with former Connecticut College student, a Connecticut College alum, Emma Rotner, who worked on the elementary school gardens in Groton, there's nothing really happening with them over the summer as of now, and that could also be an opportunity to pursue. And then community gardens benefit and increase home gardening efforts through outreach. So while we were constructing this, around 4 community members walked by and said that they were going to start home gardening themselves just from that. So it was kind of it pushed our focus on community gardening because it supports both at once. And then we had a cost analysis for if we were to do a 30 by 20 foot community garden with 8 beds around 56 square feet each. We determined that without recycling, it would be just $1,300 and 600 square foot of public space. We looked at some sites, but we looked at some sites just in research, and a couple of them didn't work. A couple of them were more interesting. We also noted that volunteer work was definitely, the community was definitely willing to volunteer, as you'll see through our survey in the future. And there's a lot of benefits, as you can see, to having this garden. We calculated that with just that 30 by 20 foot example, around 800 pounds of food could be created in 1 year, which is a lot of food to support the community. Okay.
Well, I am going to talk a bit about some of the information and some of the discussions that we were able to have during the FD Fair at the Groton Library and such. So after talking to quite a few people, some we didn't really get the opportunity to get responses on the survey, as many as we had hoped, but we got a few, but we were able to have like in-person conversations and talk to people and learn about what they are doing and what they would like for their food sovereignty, food security in Groton. If and when a community garden is implemented, would they be interested in participating? What kind of support or how would they be participating exactly? Like, is it more like donating things, or like coming once in a while, or dedicating a bit more time to working on the community garden? And do they have like some resources that they would like to actually bring in? Like, for example, if they work for the promotion of the growth of like local let's say local plants, and working with like transportation or something like that, do they have like ideas to bring those things into the community garden as well? So a lot of interest was raised, and a lot of people expressed like their desire to actually be involved in that, and they saw some of the benefits that could come from there. Because we have a lot of like invasive plants, people usually tend to go for, if they are going for a garden, maybe just do something for flowers, and they would bring some very nice, beautiful flowers into their garden, but it ends up being something that is invasive. It doesn't really serve the natural ecosystem that well. So how do we try to mitigate that? And we got a lot of like very good information input from the people. So that was very nice to hear from the local people how they want to see a community garden in Groton specifically. And as some of the next steps we are thinking about taking after all of these experiences that we've had, we believe it would be it would be necessary basically to look for a site that would work for what we are thinking about implementing. And for that work, we need to consider three major things that are very important: the accessibility of the site. And accessibility involves like a lot of different things. Is it something that is, well, it is in a space where people would like to actually be at? Or is it at a place where people would be more interested in working, depending on like, okay, their work location, where they live, and all of those things. Public transportation is not really something that is readily available in Groton or in New London area. So we want it to be something that also contributes to the success of this project. So it can't be somewhere where people cannot really reach. And we want to make it something that is also ADA friendly, because we want to include as many members of the community as possible. And the affordability of the thing. If it is too costly, it would not be something that we are trying to get to. And we don't want it to be also inefficient. So we want the cost to be something that is affordable, low cost, but also get something like donated land or cheaply given or managed from like local governments or something. And the community proximity, how near to the dense to the residential areas, how like can the people like access them? Students, what do we want to focus on? Is it going to be the students, or is it going to be only the adults? But we don't want to be only a specific group of people, so we want it to be accessible to all ages and all walks of like the people of Groton. So we actually have to also choose the type of gardening that we want. There are so many different types of community gardens, and there are like neighborhood community gardens, which we commonly think about when we are thinking about community garden, because they are the ones that many people, like you would see, we just make a garden somewhere and people come and rent the beds to work on, and then pay at the end of the year a specific amount of money, and then get the food, the produce out of it. They work together, they have events and all of those things. So there is that. But there are also gardens like residential community gardens, where people like a landowner would provide a specific area for the residents to be able to produce the food that they want. Or a more of an institutional community garden, which is usually attached to a specific institution, so a school, a hospital, or something like that. So which one would we want for Groton is the question that we need to answer now, and that is going to be based on what the Groton people want, and what kind of community we have, like how many students do we have we are interested in to work in their community garden during the summer, and do we want some educational programs. But we believe in order to get that there, it would be necessary to actually have something started before we think about that. Would be like a next step basically. So the action items that we think we want to do now is like identify some sites, as Baxter mentioned before. Once we know what's like some potential sites, we'll start looking into who should we contact, how do we reach out to them, and how do we make the people get the paperwork done so that it becomes something that is officially known as a community garden. And then try to see if we can reach out to the community to have a bit more insight into exactly the people who are interested, the people who really want to work on the community garden and be part of that initiative. So those are the things that we believe we want to try to do in the future if we get a chance to, or another group who wants to take up this project in the future. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, okay, at the end, we'll see how that goes. Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm William Coughlin.
And I'm Kate Bridges.
And our project was assisting with the Groton Earth Day Expo. Arrow keys. Hello. Space. All right. So why we chose this project? Well, so for me, I was really drawn to the opportunity to work with and support the local community. And I had admired the handling of last year's event, but also had ideas on how to make the advertisements stronger. And so I wanted to bring those to the table.
Yeah, for me, I was just really excited about kind of this idea of being able to connect with people directly on kind of a local level, because the environmental issues that we face today can seem so overwhelming and global, which they are, but like change starts on a local level. And I wanted to really be able to feel like we were making a difference, but still like engaging with climate topics directly and kind of like better understanding people's like perception of them, and kind of seeing how we can facilitate conversation about that.
Yeah.
So we set out for this project our goals that we had. So there was something of a framework in place already, because before us there had already been for the past 2 years other center students had helped also run this, and so we knew we would be promoting the event and the vendors on Instagram and Facebook, which involved reaching out to vendors and getting content to post of them. And we had on the day of the event the climate anxiety booth, where we talked to people about their thoughts and concerns surrounding climate change. We had this small, like, it was like a trifold pamphlet that we printed out copies of, and it was like an overview of climate change, kind of the issues that we're facing here in Connecticut and like what people can do. We had a survey to see like to get an idea of some of people's basic feelings around climate change, climate anxiety, that sort of thing. And finally, this was very much focused on the day of. We were helping to run the event, to set up and promote the WSHU radio station interviews. So I just want to say we could not have done this without the help of a lot of people. And like, we thank you to the Groton Library for hosting us and for hosting our planning meetings beforehand. And we worked with the event organizer, with Jason Hine from the Diddy Bag, and Roger Coons, Ann Schmidt, Shell Malloy, all really helpful in planning this, organizing this, helping us know who to reach out to and what we should try to put together. So yeah, our deliverables were the social media posts, the little climate booklet, and our survey data to try and like get an even better idea of what to do for future iterations of this event.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we had a plan going into this that faced some challenges and just sort of shifts along the way. So, one thing with this is we were kind of stuck for a while in finding the appropriate tone for our booklet that we were going to make, because this being able to communicate climate change in a way that like stresses the seriousness of the problem without leaving people totally just like incapacitated by like fear or like the enormity of the issue. And so it was hard to kind of strike a balance in. We talked about, here's the issue, here are some ways that it's impacting Connecticut with things like sea level rise and warming temperatures, but then here are things that you can do. And another thing we kind of grappled with was the balance of like personal and institutional responsibility for climate change, because oh my gosh, sorry. Basically the idea of providing certain advice, it's like, oh, you know, like ways you can consume less energy and personally contribute less. But as we know, this whole idea of the carbon footprint kind of shifts the blame onto consumers when there are much larger institutional like structures that are just perpetuating all this harm to the environment. And so we made sure we wanted to include information about advocacy groups and like local and state governments, people to reach out to and engage with to create sort of a more systemic change, because there's only so much you can do as an individual in your own habits. So we also kind of, another thing that we faced that was just how it happened to work out this year was that Conn College was having our presidential inauguration on the same day as the event, which just meant that we couldn't, we did like tried to promote the Earth Day Expo on campus that had been our plan, but like we weren't able to get necessarily very much engagement with that because a lot of people were previously concerned with the inauguration. We did get some people who we knew to come to the Earth Day Expo event, but can't take very much credit for the people who showed up because not a lot of college people were able to come. And there was also the radio show format, which we'd been told from the beginning that we were going to be helping, like we would be kind of directing people to this Zen booth where they would be recording interviews with people about their feelings on like environmental issues and climate change. But sort of on the day of the event, they were like, actually, we're not doing that. We're just going to have someone go around with a microphone and interview people. And we were like, oh, okay. Which, I mean, kind of took something off of our plate. But like, yeah, it was just unexpected. And then on the day of the event, there were meant to be some booths outside and some inside, but it was raining for most of the day. So there were still a couple groups that set up outside, a couple of vendors that had like tents that they were under, but it was definitely like a few things had to be readjusted just as we were helping set up because the weather was not good. But there was still a great turnout. And so it ended up still being successful. We worked through everything.
Yeah. All right. So beginning on March 26th, Kate and I emailed each of the 50+ vendors asking if they would like their organization to be advertised to the Expo's Instagram and Facebook accounts. And so Kate and I created a schedule of who would post and when, and we averaged 2 posts per day, presenting brand images and products, as well as a detailed description for each. I personally wanted to create posts that would garner more attention than in previous years, because I noticed that previous years, sometimes it got very little attention. And so, I mean, the less attention you get, the less people are brought to the expo. And so I looked more into what could be done to improve the posts. And so firstly, I avoided posting thumbnails that were just a logo with a white background. We both tried our best to get photos that were better than that, but we didn't always. With that, we also tried to work to create image collages or unpixelating photographs or searching online for alternative photos to create more engaging posts. With this, for me personally, at least, I averaged about 45 minutes in the making of each post. And additionally, Instagram data has shown that adding hashtags or making organizations as collaborators on posts drastically increases views. So on the right here, these are each of the posts, and this is the data for each of them. And so on a post with no tags and no collaborators, it got around 89 views, but on a post with tags and collaborators, it got 1,300. And on a post with tags and collaborators, it got over 2,000. So these are just some ways that could be continued to be used in previous years in order to garner more attention. We were still kind of testing this out, but just something to look into. And then finally, Kate also shared our flyer at the GNCE table on Earth Day to students and families on campus. And of course, we both informed as many family and friends as possible about the event.
So yeah, on the day of the expo, Saturday, April 26th, we after all this time spent kind of promoting it, we on the day of, we showed up at 9 a.m. and all the vendors were setting up their tables, mainly indoors, a couple outdoors, but we helped bring in a lot of displays and things that people had. And then the event started at 11, so we were running the climate booth, which is our climate anxiety booth. We always made sure to have at least one of us be there. Sometimes we did have early on, as we were kind of getting situated and also wanting to talk to other vendors and people there, we did have some other Goodwin Nearing students come along and like help us man the booth for a little while. But it was, for most of the time, we were always sure to have someone there to talk about to facilitate kind of the discussion of these issues and give people the surveys and the pamphlets. And another thing that I sort of, so on like night before, Will was like, oh, you should bring your camera like to this event, like, because I have a relatively like nice camera. And I got there and I went around taking pictures of vendors, and it turned out that the official photographer that they had hired had actually fallen through at the last second. So I sort of became the photographer unintentionally. So that was an added thing. And then with the WSSU radio station, as I had mentioned, they kind of changed the setup. But I did, like, at one point, relatively early on in the event, they had someone come along with the microphone and interview me about just what our booth was doing and kind of my position as a college student in the community. And so I answered some questions for that, and that was really cool. So we went through the day, and Will and I were also both able to separately, there were various like student workshops throughout the day that were discussing various like environmental topics with different like community members and experts that they had gotten to come to this event. So Will and I each went to one of those. And so, yes, we were able to keep this booth up and running while also engaging a bit more with the event. And yeah, that was really nice to be able to get to see all of these amazing vendors that we had helped promote beforehand. So I included here, I took a lot of pictures the whole day, and like this is just a few that I took. And then Will was wearing the bee costume, which several other people at the event also were. And so yeah, I went around, I took pictures of pretty much all the vendors. I stopped and asked them, like, hey, can I take your picture for, like, you can post this on social media later? And we did. Like, I later posted most of them. And so, yeah, it was just, it was really cool to be able to go around and document this event. Yeah.
Yeah. Also at the event, we shared surveys where people could come up to our booth and fill them out. They began with just 4 easy circling answers, and then 4 long answer questions. This first page here is about the 1 through 5 questions, and we just had an interesting time collecting data from the people who came. We got maybe between 30 to 40 people to fill this part of it out, and with this information, there's a few things we can do. We created the brochure for the event, of course, and a lot of the brochure goes into what climate change is, but it also goes into what we can do about it, both, as Kate said, at a personal level, but also at a deeper societal level, like talking about changing laws and going to legislators. And so this survey was able to help us find out where people actually were on that path and see how much they knew or thought they knew about climate change, how concerned they were about climate change. And so it was just interesting to see on a scale of 1 to 5, people averaged 3.5 for how much they felt they knew about climate change. They averaged 3.9 for how much they felt they heard, thought, or talked about climate change. They averaged 4.5 for how concerned they were, with no answers at 1 or 2. And they averaged 2.4 for how confident they were in society's ability to reverse the effects of climate change. So clearly a lot of anxiety and not a lot of hope. And so just something potentially interesting for future groups to look into. Maybe they want to push themes of hope further, or maybe it's kind of okay to have this anxiety and learning to take that anxiety and put it somewhere productive, like, reaching out to legislature and trying to change laws with these sorts of things. And so onto the long answer questions. The top answers for what are some things that make you anxious about climate change were rising sea levels and fear of government inaction, both at 5 votes. And then there were ice caps melting, animal insect deaths, extreme weather, a bad future, and miseducation and misinformation on climate change, each wavering around 3 to 2 votes. And then most answers for what do you think is the largest cause of climate change boiled down to people and how they use the Earth's resources. And most answers for what do you think would be a reasonable solution to climate change were varied, but related through themes of deep structural change. Some mentioned ending capitalism, or replacing politicians, or reintroducing society to nature, and so on and so forth. And so finally, our advice for future organizers. We're currently working on a document for next year's GNCE students that take up this project. It'll include this survey data so they can have it, because there were surveys in the previous year and we never got access to the data or what they looked like. And so we kind of had to do this from scratch, and I think it could be good for next year to sort of have this as a base. We're also going to include a copy of our trifold brochure handout. We're going to include things we learned along the way, things we wish we knew, basically everything in this PowerPoint and more. But most importantly, that boils down to 5 key points. First of all, begin the networking early. We reached out to the vendors on the 26th of March or so, and some didn't get back to us until the 24th of April, 2 days before the event. So the earlier you reach out to people, the better. Second is create a schedule of when tasks need to be complete. I feel we did a pretty good job of this throughout, but we did end up continuing to push back the brochure until it was probably too late to be comfortable with. 3 would be to check in regularly, both with each other and make sure that we're doing okay, but also, of course, with the GCC. 4 would be to create your own fun twists on things. There wasn't a brochure the previous year, and we thought it did well this year, but also, anything else goes. You don't just have to do this same exact event again. We'll try to reiterate that in the document. And then 5th would be maybe 3 people would be an optimal situation for this. We definitely survived, but we could have thrived a bit healthier had there been a 3rd person, perhaps. We have no thank you slide, so this is our thank yous. I had a great time doing this event, and I thought it was wonderful being there on the day of. I loved talking with people. It was so sweet, and I particularly loved the one-on-one interactions with people who came up, and they came up stressed and making a lot of jokes. But then when I was able to sit down and talk with them about their anxiety, they were able to calm down, and we really had some deep discussions, and it felt like all of the work had paid off, and we were actually able to interact with these people in the community and at least have a good discussion about these things, and I hope create change.
Yeah, no, I really want to extend a lot of thanks to everyone who helped us get here and to the Goodwin Nearing Center for giving us this opportunity to engage with the community and just, I mean, I love any reason to be in a public library, and it was really amazing I know, we saw in the email later was saying it was between 1,200 and 1,300 people was the estimated attendance of the event. And we got to talk to a lot of them, and yeah, I really appreciate having this opportunity to engage with the community more and learn how to kind of plan things more directly and not just feel like I'm watching things from the sidelines,
Yeah. So thank you so much for having us, and we loved assisting with this event, and we hope the next group does even better next year.
Yep, one more to go. I see what you mean, Ann. They were a good team. Yeah, they were a good team. There we go.
Hi guys, my name is Amelia.
I'm Addie.
And this is our GCC backpack project.
Yeah, so for Go Groton backpacks, we really started with a simple idea that was to mainly get kids and families in the Groton community outside and engaging with their environment, but more specifically Pequot Woods.
So in terms of project history, the Groton Library had a backpack that could be checked out that filled these basic requirements, but there was not a lot of information about the project that we were able to find. And it wasn't targeted to a specific area, so it made getting people outside and interacting with Groton land a little bit more difficult. Beyond that, similar projects have been done, but nothing this local. So we drew inspiration from other projects, but this is local to us.
Yeah, so for the original plan we had was to create basically 2 models of backpacks, one more geared towards elementary age students and then one more towards high school. And these would include more for the younger kids, but paints, bubbles, chalk, possibly a woods bingo that would include a reward at the end or multiple rewards. But like the bubbles and the chalk would really create single-use items that wouldn't align with our leave no trace theme of the backpacks.
So for the initial timeline, we created, we were hoping to finalize and submit a project proposal in February. By March 1st, have a funding proposal. Mid-March, order the materials that would go into the backpack. In early April, we were hoping to have the maps and activity sheets created. In April, we were also hoping to visit the Pequot Woods. And then for Earth Day in late April, we were to present our completed backpack at the Earth Day event.
Yeah, so we had to make a few pivots to the project. Like I said before, those items that we originally wanted to include were single-use items and could be left behind and could potentially harm the environment and create more trash, than was needed. So what we did was, after talking with our project contacts, we sort of decided to center the backpacks around the scavenger hunt that we created and a kid-friendly map that would sort of supplement those two things and encourage interaction with the environment rather than taking away from it. And again, like leaving anything behind that could potentially harm the trails.
So in terms of execution, we researched native plants and animals that someone wandering through Pequot Woods might find. To do this, we spoke to a contact in Pequot Woods and talked about seasonal plants so that every season that someone would go exploring in the woods, there would be some plants and animals for them to find, as well as invasive and non-invasive species, which was important because non-invasives, children would be able to pick and touch because they are less important to the biodiversity in the woods, where that's the invasive. The non-invasive species were plants that you would want to leave alone in order to protect the woods. So after doing that research, we came up with the scavenger hunt and included sensory engaging activities to add, such as smell, touch, sound. After this, we formatted the scavenger hunt and a kid-friendly trail map through Canva and bought the other items to add into the backpack. So this is our map here. It has icons for benches, bridges, parking, entrances, and the playground. And this is just one page of what our scavenger hunt would look like. So we have the species, something for people to look for, and then a place where they could write stuff down, maybe do a drawing, whatever they felt like.
Yeah, so for our final backpack model, again, going from the two and just focusing on one, for a younger age group, which would be the 4-page scavenger hunt, the kid-friendly trail map that you just saw. We created a poster board to explain this whole process at the Groton Earth Day Fair. And then the rest of the items in the backpack would be the compass, binoculars, magnifying glass, clipboard, and pens and paper.
So in terms of future directions for the project, it is currently functional and can be implemented immediately. However, there are some improvements that we think a next group could make if they were to work on this, including testing the scavenger hunt with children and getting feedback, adding more physical landmarks to the woods and to the trail map in order to make it easier to follow, creating multiple backpacks so that multiple families could check them out, and finding a way to manage materials in the backpack to make sure that they're not damaged or if they need to be replaced. In addition to this, we also talked about having website access and information so that it was readily available to any families who would want to check it out.
Yeah, and then we just want to say a quick thank you to Jen, Michelle, Kate, and William, and Megan Groton.
Thank you.
Should we stay here?
Okay, so Jen's gonna switch to her laptop. We can have
So all the
questions.
students could
Here we
come
go.
in this, please. I'm gonna have us.
So do you want to start from the beginning, or do you want to start with the students who are already there and work back? Of course, Jen's doesn't have a
Okay.
camera, yeah.
The students are coming on in. Does anybody have questions from the Groton Conservation Commission? Thank you so much for.
Well, I guess let's start in order then, since we can't see the students. So does anybody have questions on the planting trees?
Yes.
Go ahead.
My question is Tom
So
Olson,
yes, this is it for the tree group.
tree group, the first
So,
group.
Philip,
The question I had, you mentioned in your presentation about a recommended site at Paquonic Bridge to develop it. The site that it was in your photo was Groton Utility owned property that's owned by the city of Groton. And we run into a problem that here in regard to, in discussions that we've had with them in the past, or that I've participated in the past, is that they have a lot of control issues with that particular area. And as such, that's why it's in the condition that it is. They've actually had research guys come in, study what they want for because this is all the exiting from the Groton Utility Reservoir system out into Long Island Sound. This is their last owned property to that. And that's what it's very tightly controlled relative because it's a class 3 watershed area. And so was that taken into consideration when you were making your recommendations?
Yes, we tried not to focus on too many specific places because we don't know exactly all of the conditions surrounding like specific properties and specific parts of land. We were just more focused on getting our information to people who did have control over some of the spaces they lived in and who could implement rain gardens and become more aware of the areas that were being flooded.
Thank you.
Larry, do you have a question for them?
Yeah, two quick questions. You mentioned in your presentation that 70% of the residents in flood controlled or evacuation areas were unaware that they were. Is that something you picked up from Earth Day, or is there a source for that statistic?
There's a source for that. If it's not in the presentation, it's in our notes. And if you would like that source, I can send it.
Yeah, make sure it's in your report, please.
Okay.
Yep. And the other thing is, you said a pamphlet you made was available. Could you also make that available in your report?
Yes, yeah, we can make that available as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and that's true for all the pamphlets. Like, it sounds like several groups made pamphlets. Please make sure we get access to them electronically. Okay. All right, so the next group was the play space. Phoebe and Madeline, did anybody have questions for the play space people? The only question I had, and this actually is a combination of the play space and the garden people, is there a way to use the garden areas that they already have and have the students turn them into community gardens that the people can then use in the summer? So I know that's not up just for you guys, but that's my idea, is like to maybe combine those two ideas into something that would work for the future. And if any of you have any response to that, we'd be happy to hear it. If not, we could move on.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you for saying something. One thing that we were talking about after our meeting with Ben and when we realized more about the schools and what they already had, is we thought maybe our efforts would be better focused in some of the other schools that don't already have such great programs. But I think maybe it would be a good idea to do, as you said, kind of like supplement what they already have, but then maybe in the future, focus on giving schools that don't have so much of this already. So
Great,
yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you for saying that.
So that's it. Okay, so the next is the trail people. And I know, so the person they talked about Peacock Woods was you, right, Bray?
No, this was at COP.
Oh, is this
No,
cop?
that was cop.
Oh, I'm sorry, this
Right,
cop.
that's come, I got a
So
question.
that was Tom. So Tom was the person. Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, Tom Olson again, for on the Trail Forks Trail Works. Did you guys load a example session from the COP property?
Could you say that once more?
Well,
Get a little closer and feedback on it.
did you, what?
You were too close to the
Oh.
when you were in feedback like that.
Okay. On your Trail Forks Trail Works application that you're using, did you develop a sample for the COP property?
Like actually input something into the.
Yeah, that I could take a look at today.
We didn't actually submit anything to the public forum, because we didn't feel like there was any trail maintenance required. But we could, if that's something that you'd be interested in seeing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and actually, if you, I know it's towards the end of the semester, but if you have the time, that was something for us to work with the Parks and Rec. If you actually had an example of feedback from the trail, even if it's, hey, this spot's in really good shape, or anything to show us the actual, what you were able to make it, how to make it work. Is that what you're? the point
Yeah,
you're-
basically.
See it.
Just an example of a report, even if its report is, everything's great.
Yeah, that's great. I think we're planning on including that in our report too, with screenshots of what that would look like.
Okay, great.
And just a query, is that, you talked about it's website based, not an app, but is it usable on a phone? Is the website usable through the phone?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was using it here.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yeah, we got that. Okay.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for this group? Okay, the Groton 2035 Community Gardening. Any questions for that group? Tom?
Tom Olson again. I always learn something new every day. I never had heard the terminology food sovereignty. And what is from your I didn't hear you guys give a definition to that relative to how it relates to individual, residential, and community gardening. And what's the definition to better explain that?
Yeah, sure. So it's like basically the control one has over their own food system. So for example, if you're going to the store, you're buying your fresh produce, you don't really genuinely know where that's from unless it's from a market stand or you grow it yourself. So even though CSA agriculture is great for that local food system and advancing it at a small level, it's also very beneficial to focus on that food sovereignty aspect, which would be growing your own food, showing up to farmers markets, talking to the farmers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why it kind of relates to community gardening specifically.
So could you, Michelle, could you say basically that's having control over your own food sourcing? Is that kind of what you're meaning?
Yeah.
But what would be the difference between a individual residential gardening as opposed to a community gardening? At least I understand the way we've set a community gardening in Groton is that it's at an offsite location that's run by the town right now, or it's like at the Human Services up at Noank Community Park. We have these different locations. We've got community gardens at. I guess I'm a little lost as far as what does food sovereignty have to do with the difference between those two? I understand food sovereignty is you're controlling your food.
Yeah.
Well, if I could well, I think from your presentation though, basically not all residents can grow their own food.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't have control because they can't grow their own food. So
There
the community
really-
garden did I interpret that correctly?
In a sense, yes, but there really isn't too big a difference in terms of like the control over the food that you have when it is either community or home gardening. The only difference here that we were trying to point out was the accessibility and the feasibility of it. Home gardening is more complex and would involve a lot of information on individual people and their needs and everything that they do at home, their home property, like do they have regulations in terms of, are they allowed to garden on it or not? Do they have like safety measures to protect themselves against like some soil diseases and all of those things? So like it involves a lot of things. So we are trying to make it as easy to do, meaning as feasible as possible, as well as accessible as possible to the people. So that is why we went for community gardening instead.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I was thinking more along of a follow-on project,
Mhm.
which says now that you've made the definition and made a, let's say, a case for what to do it and some examples of costing, is that a future project would be, we have in our database a lot of half acre or less properties owned by the town, which tend to be sprinkled around all the neighborhoods. So identification of some of those existing town-owned properties and potentially the creation of a kit that could then be sponsored by the town, and then local neighborhood would buy in on it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's a great concept for the next group.
Right,
Yeah.
how to
Yep.
then.
How to actually make it happen in
how to make it
Groton.
happen.
Right, yep.
So that
Yeah,
was
cool.
that's one way that some local organizations operate in New London specifically. I don't know if you've heard of like Fresh New London. but
Yep,
they
we
have
know
a-
about that.
Yeah, exactly. They have a bunch of like snacking beds even around the town. that-
Snacking beds. I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So
That is such a cool terminology, snacking beds. That's fun.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, we would go. Okay, how about questions for the Groton Earth Day Expo people?
I think when I saw on there, it said 17,000 views. Is that?
It was in 17,000. It
I
was
thought it said-
1,700.
1,700.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be, I was impressed.
No,
Yes.
it said
I'm impressed with
17,000.
1,700.
It was, he said 1,700 though.
Okay, all right.
I was gonna, yeah, it did say so.
It was a typo?
It said 17,
He did.
yeah, okay,
Okay.
all right, okay. All
Still
right,
very
I'm
interesting,
sorry,
though.
I
That's
was.
good.
That's all right. So any questions? Tom, yes.
Yeah, one more question, Tom Olson here. I noticed in the advertising portion of this, there's a lot of radio ads on the public radio, on NPR type of stations. And were you guys involved in getting those, or how, or any influence into that process?
For advertising the Earth Day Expo on the radio itself?
No, beforehand, 2 to 3 weeks in advance, I started hearing radio ads for the Groton Expo.
Well,
It-
they were there, so they must have just been announcing. What did they say?
Well, yeah, they said the Groton, come up and attend, and they had different, I had, I think, like 2 or 3
This is
different ads.
beforehand they were announcing.
Yeah, like in the weeks, 2 weeks beforehand. I just was wondering if the students were involved in that process at all.
No, we advertised the radio station on the Instagram, but I'm guessing the radio station themselves were just advertising their presence there.
Okay,
We didn't have any control of that.
thanks.
Anything else? Okay, and finally, the backpack group. Anybody have questions for the backpack group?
This is a clarification question on, did you actually execute a hunt, or was this the plan for?
But did they actually implement the hunt? Because
Yeah.
they have all the pages.
Right,
And they actually, I kind of wish you had taken a picture of the backpack materials that you had at the Earth Day Fair, because they actually had the physical
that
backpack
I saw.
and all the physical pieces at the fair.
Right.
Well, you saw it at the fair, but it would be
Right.
nice to have it in their presentation
Oh,
Mhm.
good, yeah, okay.
Yeah, or like a little video.
for those that didn't see it at the fair.
Yeah, coulda showed.
But anyway, so go ahead, and your question again, Larry?
My question was, did they execute a hunt,
Oh,
or was this?
Did you actually
the
do a
plan
hunt?
for it?
Right, did they do a hunt?
So everything is ready to be implemented. We have all of the materials and formatting. The scavenger hunt itself would be an individual activity for each family who checks out the backpack. So it's ready to be set in motion. It's not an event in itself.
Okay.
Right, but you haven't actually, did you take your information and walk through the woods trying to do the hunt yourself? Is that the question? That's my question.
Okay, that's your question.
I mean, we haven't, so the backpack, like Amelia said, is ready to use. But we haven't gone to Pequot Woods ourselves and done the
Okay.
scavenger hunt. nor has it been checked out by any families yet, which is.
Okay, that was the question. Thank you.
So,
Yep.
so the intent is that the library would have the backpacks and the families would check them out?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
All right.
that was the question.
Yeah, have you already arranged with the library to carry the backpack for you, to have it available to people?
No, that's the next step. We are ready to pass it off to Jen, so before we leave, it should be ready to go in, but I think that's the next step, is to make some calls.
Okay, well, I mean, Megan's been involved in the library, person's been involved, so they know it's available. They just haven't made that connection yet. Okay, well, I would like to thank all of you and just tell you that all of you did a great job. Your presentations were awesome. I hope the rest of the commission was as excited as I am to see the results.
Yes.
Because I have a vested interest, obviously, but
Well, you're
yeah,
biased.
I am,
Right.
yeah, I'm
So-
potentially
from an unbiased
biased.
perspective.
So how about some unbiased perspectives, just people that
No,
weren't
I
involved?
wanna Say thank you for all the teams for the week, for the work they have done. And I think one of the things that struck me across everybody was the real world smacking you upside the head as you started to execute.
Right.
Which is kind of the purpose of
Yes.
the program, is that
Yes.
things will always happen. And how you react to that really is almost as important as the initial, the initial approach.
Yep, I agree.
So that was good stuff. Yeah.
Any other
Yeah, no,
comments?
great job. Really enjoyed your presentations and working with some of you guys, half the groups, I guess.
I'll follow suit. It was great working with you guys. I hope you guys, do great on your exams, and thank you.
All right, well, thanks. We'll let you guys get to your pizza party or whatever it is you got them for dinner, Jen. And I'll text you about when your availability is to get together.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry you can't see all their smiling faces, but we really appreciate all your commission's work as well and the opportunity to work together, and have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
You guys.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so to wrap this up.
Yes.
I guess as we move to the future is like we did last time is to.
Right, so Jen actually asked them to do the one pagers for us, so they owe me a one pager for our website. And we will get the presentations and they have a written report for us as well. So we'll get 3 things from them. Obviously, the presentation's already done. We'll just get access to them. And the report, and I don't know exactly when that's due, but I'm guessing they're probably due within a week, because it's got to be before the end of the semester, right?
Before they leave.
Right, and they will have the one, so I won't have to create the one pagers. They
Right.
should be delivering to me an editable 1-page document.
So then I gotta work to get, which I have a follow-up with you, Dave, of trying to get IT to actually follow through and everything. So that's.
Yeah, good luck with that.
A separate question. I'll get to you offline.
So I'm hoping within the month,
Okay.
so that we should have all of that.
What exactly are we going to use this information? Are we going to start?
Oh, okay,
Like-
so you weren't here last year. So, what happened is, and now we got a better process.
Right.
Is to put together the results of what they did and package it up and get it on our website, make it available.
Okay.
We also then went to the town council with a summary of what they did, and.
Right.
And if you go through some of these recommendations, we can extract.
There's actually some actionable stuff in here.
Yes, no,
So in our
You
next
can
meeting, to answer Giselle's question, now that we have all the information, we can think about it, and then June's meeting, not next week, but at June's meeting, talk about which of these things we want to try to take
Really
that next step with,
Right.
and what that step would be.
Okay.
And then we also, one of the things that I like to do is to make a list of the following stuff for next, like what we learned from this year that we'd want to do again
Right,
next year.
Next year.
So that then when then in November, October, whatever
It comes,
it comes, we have that list to start with, and then we can add to it based on what else
Okay.
comes up over the summer.
Let's do it.
And I'm sure that they'll want to do it, Jen will want to do it again. There's no reason at this point, unless they don't have that program anywhere, which that's a possibility. They may change that first course they take from service learning to something else. If the center changes their program,
Right, yeah.
we might lose this accessibility. if the program stays the same, I can definitely see us doing these again next year. There's obviously some really good follow-ons for next year, so.
That's all.
So that's how we, that's what we do with
I was
this,
gonna say
Giselle.
it's private.
That's the next phase on that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? We'll do a follow-up in June for the June agenda. Okay.
I mean, it's all, the projects
no.
are always on the agenda anyway, so it's on
Oh,
the
yeah, it's on,
agenda.
well, I just meant,
It's a standing thing, but we will definitely have the time for the discussion. Yeah.
You gonna invite Jen to that one? Or we're just gonna have internally?
I'll invite her, whether she's available or not, I don't know, but I will definitely invite her.
yeah, no, that's fine, but it's right, it's not a.
It also
mandate.
Might be,
makes
yeah.
to invite
I know,
Megan
yeah.
and Tabitha. And, you know, whoever else might, you know, it's maybe.
Oh, that were
the
sponsors.
people that
if
were
you will.
involved in the
Yeah.
project, yeah. Yeah, and you got, who's the guy from the?
Jason.
Jason, right? So it might be nice to, and who else? And Ben, yeah, it might be nice to invite the other people that helped them out.
We have to get him the names?
I don't think so,
Okay.
because it's
On
a
the
public, it's
presentation,
public,
that
right?
it is.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
I don't mean. from
we don't
that, I
need to
just meant
official
from an
invite them.
Because it's
No, well,
staff.
we can send them an email.
Yeah, so many emails.
I would say, so we should send an email, but I'll send it to Tabitha and Megan, you guys can send it to your people. So basically, we will invite the people that we worked with.
I
on
think
the
it'll, yeah,
projects.
it'll mean more coming from you all,
Yeah,
because you work with them directly.
right,
And-
that, hey, you know, come to the
Yeah,
public
wait,
meet,
it
it's
takes
public,
what,
right?
2 days for this to get published?
Yeah, it's usually,
on the
well,
website?
yeah.
So you can say, hey, we had the meeting.
Right.
It's now available, the Zoom presentation is
Yep.
available for that, things that you did, and then do the.
And actually, we could get, so if you go, I've never tried to find the recordings, but I'm guessing
Yeah.
there's a link.
Oh, yeah, they're
online.
all, you just go to, it's GMTV YouTube channel, and you can find them all
It comes out, and it takes about 2 days for them to
to get online, yeah,
kind of get online.
Okay,
So, but it-
approximately, yeah.
approximate, yeah, but it gets up there pretty quick.
okay,
Right? And that'd be helpful for
yep,
them to follow.
yeah, because that way they can see the
Right, they see the
presentation.
presentations, right.
Yep.
Any other on this topic? Okay, we had one other quick topic. Hopefully, quick. There's the May 8th public meeting for Groton
Groton 2035.
There you go.
just rolls off the tongue. Groton 2035, which is one of the very few chances, or at least the first chance to get our public statements in.
So let me say a couple, you guys are more than welcome to talk as a commission, but so the purpose of this is to hear from everyone. So I want you all, besides just wearing your Conservation Commission hat, if there's anything, you know, personally that impacts you or things that you want to talk about, we're looking for impact from residents too. So not just, I'm just giving you, I want to make sure that none of you that go there is like, oh, I can't talk about this. I have to focus on conservation. If there are stuff outside of what you all have decided as priorities, bring it up, because this is the opportunity for everyone, like everyone in the community to really stress what the important things are. So
I hear you, and that's fine, but
Or and.
I was very.
It's and,
I was
yeah.
Very clear, we're gonna get very few opportunities to speak.
Oh.
Right,
we have, this is the first public one.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
and so my thought was that we have 6 priorities that we had identified, and each of us kind of has one, is that if you're available, is to, in addition to anything you want to bring up on your own, say a few words, and I kind of said, what's the issue and why it matters, is kind of like the 2 themes I had for each of the sections that each of us could bring in. So I had waste management, and which is good because Kristen's gonna be out of town anyway. So I was gonna go and do that about, you know, the waste management issues in the state and why it's important, why it needs to be addressed in the PLCD, because it has not ever been in a PLCD. So that's kind of the gist that I had, and I would just ask that if you guys could attend, get your section and just do a few words on, you know, that this is one of our priorities, and we just like to make sure that it gets heard.
And,
that was.
and so everything's going to be like stations. So you're going to actually be able to go around to each station, and there's like natural resources, sustainability, housing, transportation, historical and cultural resources, and a few others. So you'll have an opportunity to try to figure out where it would fit in one of those.
Yeah,
But
which, yeah, because we actually don't do housing, we don't do.
and that's why I'm saying like,
Okay.
that's why I'm saying like, if you have personal opinions on these things, that's like, we don't just want it, like, you can go to one, you can go to all. It's totally up to you. That's the format that you don't have to stay the whole time. There'll be a presentation, I think at 5:30. I think that's 5:30 or 6. It's on the thing. It's on 6. Yeah. Starts at 5:30, but there'll be a presentation at 6. And then, there'll be food and stuff like that. And I think a couple of us were mentioning this before. If you can register ahead of time, if you definitely can, it gives you an extra little ticket for a raffle we're going to be doing. But if you don't, that's fine too. It's more just to keep track of trying to get an idea of how many people are planning on attending.
All right, so quick poll. Planning on attending, yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yes, I'll be a little late, but yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
good turnout.
Yep.
That was the 2 topics.
Yes, it was.
So, any, staff?
Don't adjourn yet.
Don't?
No,
Are you on the agenda?
yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, he's always on the agenda.
So this is just a reminder, that it's on the agenda, that next week's meeting is on Monday. So that'll be the regular, it's a special meeting that is at the
Oh, it's a
regular
regular
agenda.
meeting.
That has a regular agenda for a special meeting.
So we'll
So
do the minutes of meeting and all that normal stuff.
I will not be here. Deb will actually be here. Yep,
Okay.
Deb will here. You get Deb, yes, you do.
Asterisk.
You never been a big even Deb yet.
So yeah, that's all. That's easy.
Else?
No, that's it.
I move we adjourn.
Second? Without objection?
Who was the second? Was it you?
Giselle wanted credit for
Oh,
it.
Giselle, all right. Well, I saw you say second, and then I'm like, I thought you, and then I was like, wait, did you say second?
I caught it. She
All right. Like, wait a second.
Thank you.